The strong leader stands back from the spotlight. This truth hit me when I worked with a tech team in Seattle last year. The project manager never forced his decisions on us. Instead, he asked questions, listened, and created space for everyone to contribute. The team delivered the best work of our careers. You might think great leadership means being the smartest person in the room. Many of us were raised on images of dominant, all-knowing bosses who command respect through authority. This mental model follows us into our first leadership roles. We believe we must know all answers, make every decision, and tightly control outcomes. The data tells a different story. Google's Project Oxygen, their extensive study of effective management, found that technical expertise ranked last among qualities that define great leaders. What ranked highest? Creating psychological safety, empowering the team, and showing genuine interest in team member success. This creates what I call the leadership retreat paradox. The more you step back as a leader, the more your team steps forward. When leaders micromanage and dominate conversations, they create dependency. Team members learn to wait for instructions rather than think independently. They hide mistakes instead of learning from them. The organization becomes limited by the capacity of its leaders rather than multiplied by the collective intelligence of its people. The alternative requires courage. Giving up control feels dangerous. What if the team makes mistakes? What if they head in the wrong direction? What if your value as a leader is questioned? These fears trap many leaders in controlling behaviors that ultimately weaken their teams. A 2023 Gallup poll showed only 23% of employees feel their opinions matter at work. This disengagement costs the U.S. economy around $500 billion annually in lost productivity. Susan Cain writes in Quiet about how our culture celebrates charismatic, dominant personalities, yet some of history's most effective leaders were quiet and reflective. They understood the power of creating space for others. The turning point in my understanding came during a leadership retreat with my mentor, James. Our team faced a complex strategic challenge, and as the leader, I felt pressure to provide the solution. James noticed my anxiety and pulled me aside. Leadership isn't about having all the answers, he said. It's about creating the conditions where answers can emerge from anywhere. This perspective shift changed everything. I returned to the team and instead of presenting my solution, I asked powerful questions. I shared what I knew about the problem, but not what I thought the answer should be. I created space for divergent thinking before convergence. The results were remarkable. Team members who rarely spoke up shared brilliant insights. People built on each other's ideas. The solution we ultimately developed was far superior to anything I would have created alone. This approach to leadership draws from ancient wisdom. The Taoist concept of Wu Wei describes action through non-action. The leader creates space rather than filling it, guides rather than controls, and trusts rather than doubts. Modern psychology confirms this wisdom. Research on intrinsic motivation by psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan shows people perform best when they feel autonomy, competence, and relatedness. A controlling leader undermines all three. The philosopher Lao Tzu wrote, "A leader is best when people barely know he exists. When his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, 'We did it ourselves.'" This doesn't mean abdicating responsibility. The retreating leader remains engaged but shifts from directive to supportive behaviors. They ask questions rather than give answers. They focus on the why and let the team figure out the how. They provide resources and remove obstacles. They celebrate progress and treat failures as learning opportunities. They develop people's capabilities rather than directing their actions. The leader becomes a gardener rather than a commander. They create fertile conditions, plant seeds of possibility, remove weeds of dysfunction, and then trust the natural growth process. This approach requires patience. Gardens don't bloom overnight. The retreating leader takes the long view, knowing that short-term inefficiency leads to long-term resilience and capacity. I've seen this transformation happen in organizations of all kinds. At a hospital in Chicago, a nursing supervisor stopped solving every problem for her staff and instead created a system where nurses could solve problems themselves. Patient satisfaction scores rose 27% within 6 months. The retreat paradox applies beyond formal leadership roles. In marriages, friendships, and parenting, creating space for others to grow strengthens relationships. When we resist the urge to control, fix, or dominate, we allow others to develop their own capabilities. The ultimate test of leadership isn't what you do while present, but what happens in your absence. When a team thrives without you, you've succeeded as a leader. Try this experiment. In your next meeting, speak less and listen more. Ask questions rather than making statements. Create space for quieter voices. Notice how the energy shifts and what emerges from this space. The retreat paradox challenges us to redefine strength. True strength isn't found in dominance but in the courage to trust others, to be vulnerable enough to not have all the answers, and to find joy in others' growth. When you step back as a leader, you don't diminish your impact. You multiply it through the collective capability of your team. This is the paradox and the promise of leadership that retreats to advance.